We can go. All right, welcome. So I see Facebook is live, and I'm very, very excited today with the expert that we have on today for this session in our interview with the expert and bringing people on who are in and doing the work and making things happen and bringing health and wellness to everybody, making it more mainstream when we're looking at taking care of ourselves through holistic health, through natural means with what we can do. And we kind of had a little chat ahead of time, and we're both like have this in our heart of doing it before we get to certain spaces. So obviously you need help once we get to a certain place and trying to weave through things, but really what can we do to prevent from getting to that space in the beginning? So welcome, Karri Tidwell, and I'm very excited. The summit that you're running right now is doing amazing, and you're getting and reaching so many people, which is really the goal, right? As we're doing a summit, is how can we get this information to as many people as possible and making it affordable for people to be able to know this information and to really integrate it into their life. So welcome. I'd love for you to introduce yourself. I know you're on this path for a reason, so whatever you're wanting to share would be amazing.
Yeah,
Welcome.
yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, my name's Karri Tidwell, and I'm a regenerative detoxification specialist. And I have a huge passion for wanting to make, regenerative health and holistic health common knowledge. Like if people just knew this information, we could avoid so much unnecessary suffering and surgeries and all these things in the future. And yeah, and that's why I did the regenerative health podcast. So it's called, or the summit called Regenerative Health Summit Answers Beyond the Doctor, to feel really confident in your body's ability to heal naturally. And I was able to do that because I was struggling with my own health and I was searching for answers. So like many of us here, right, are probably like, there's got to be a better way. I saw my dad struggle and suffer with so many different health ailments and on medication after medication. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. This medication causes this side effect, and now you have to be on that one. And we were in and out of hospitals all the time. And I would just remember being like, but why? Like, could this have been prevented? Could he have been proactive with his health? And I remember talking to his doctor, and he's like, you're going to have type 2 diabetes. You're going to have heart failure. He told me all this stuff. And I was like, I won't though, because I'm going to I'm going to figure this out. And that's, what I did. I started to have symptoms young. Um, I'm, I'm 42 now, but in my 20s and 30s, I started to have pretty severe symptoms. And that's what got me to look. I knew I wanted another baby in my 30s, and I thought there's no way I can have a baby with the body I was feeling. I would get lightheaded every time I stood up. I had chronic pain. I was just inflamed all the time. And that's when I just started to seek out other solutions. And I can't tell you how many natural things I thought I was doing right. Like I meet so many people and they're like, I eat healthy. And I thought I did too. And I was like, there's still some pieces of the puzzle I was missing. And so that's when I learned about regenerative detoxification. And if we don't remove the obstructions to the flow of energy, what we don't eliminate, we accumulate. And that just started to speak truth to me. And I learned iridology and learning about the body signals of like, oh, I thought this is normal to have a painful menstrual cycle. I thought this was normal to have bloating and gas and digestive stuff, because that's all I knew. And once I learned this information, applied it, within 3 months, like all these symptoms went away that I just thought were normal, and I didn't realize how good I could feel. And once I felt that good, I didn't know how I lived like that for so long. So anyhow, that's a little introduction.
I love a couple of things you mentioned in there about eating healthy until you actually ask people what they eat. I find that often opens up, and sometimes people are eating fairly clean, but there's something that they're reacting to within that because there's other things happening within the digestive system. And then sometimes eating healthy is you look at it and it's like, okay, we got to shift the perspective of what does health mean in our society nowadays with what seems and marketing plays into that role, right? Of like knowing what is actually good for our bodies to take in and what is going to fuel us. So I love that you mentioned that, and that what we don't eliminate, we accumulate. So true. And it
Hmm.
sounds like that's been a big focus for you. That is, how do we detox? How do we cleanse to
Hmm.
really release? And what you mentioned right now, I automatically went to like liver. That is like our huge filter. And it also plays a big role in menstrual cycles and how we go through those cycles, as well as digestion and how we digest on a day to day. And yet it's like this key focus point of one of the key focus points for how we eliminate, it's through our skin, through our liver, through our kidneys, through, just our respiratory, is how our body gets rid of stuff. So
Mhm.
we can get an idea early on of what's happening, but oftentimes it becomes normal. And we're like,
Yeah.
and you don't know where you're at until you feel so much better.
Yeah, like I just didn't. But I knew I felt way older than what I was. Like in my 20s, I remember my legs gave out on me and I couldn't walk one day. I started to have weird neurological stuff. I just started to have weird symptoms throughout. Yeah, and just was like trying to try all these different diets, right? Tried to do something to, I'm like, something's off. And yeah, it really wasn't until I learned about really clearing the lymphatic system and really understanding the lymphatic system, which a lot of people don't really talk about, which is our body's sewer system. And it's responsible for cleaning out the cellular waste. And I had a lot of chronic pain too. I felt I couldn't stand up straight in the morning, and I blamed it on my bed or my pillow. Right, I slept wrong, or I'm always stiff and tight. And I had a hard time standing up straight, so I'd be hunched over in the morning. Like first, I didn't even want to wake up, so I was tired all the time. And then I had a hard time even standing up straight. And yeah, and I spent lots of money trying to get a new bed, thinking it was the mattress because I would wake up like that. I had no clue about like what was happening internally, and that I could, I went to chiropractors, I did all these things that I thought were the right thing. And I also had sciatica. So I had all of these like symptoms upon symptoms that I was trying to like just externally like, get a bed, get massage, get chiropractic, but I didn't realize the terrain inside had a huge role in that.
Right. So as you started to put it together, what was your first step? So if somebody is seeing this, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me, or I also don't sleep well, or like it's hard to get up, or I feel like this, it's like a pressure inside almost when you get up, or that like things just aren't flowing. Where did you start from?
Yeah, well, I remember trying different like cleanses and like just eating real whole foods, and I felt good, and then I'd go back to old ways. So it was like I would take a couple steps forward and a step back because I didn't know how to sustain it. I didn't understand that piece, but like so cleaning out the body. I also was addicted to sugar. So I had a hard time getting off of that. And I didn't realize I was addicted till you try to let it go. And so I started adding in more real whole foods and like lots of cleansing foods like fruits. And then I went on a protocol for a few months, and that's when I really noticed a difference, like really cleaning out things. And then I experimented with my body, and I've done tons of cleanses and different things beyond that. And so now I could tell you what not to do, what to do, because I pendulum swung of like going really extreme to, because I was like, oh, if I could detox faster. And so I went into that mindset, but now I guide people of there's stages and phases. And so the first step I always say is like first just eat real whole foods and pay attention to how your body feels when you eat those things, because everybody responds a little different.
I agree. Yes, because even whole food, sometimes it takes a while to get into it where your body will handle it well, to where we're breaking it down and digesting well. But that is where I start too. And I loved when Whole30 came out because it
Mhm.
was so easy to direct people there. And there's like a printable shopping list of what's the best choices, what are the foods on the shopping list, what are recipes. And then it took off, and now there's books and things that make it easy to know how to eat whole food and make it delicious if you're that type of person that needs the flavor, needs combinations, that it does help simplify. So I love, that's one that I often still direct people to, and find the printable PDF for shopping lists. And I love that they expanded it into autoimmune AIP and or a 30-day hold, and whatnot, so that you can even specify more, fine tune even more based on some idea of what you have going on. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and everyone's different. So yeah, what could be one person's food could be another person's like poison. And so it's nice to see where you're at. And also just like if you like I would see somebody do something, I'm like, oh, that's what I need to do. And then I do it, and then you realize like, okay, that might work for them, but you can start to try things on and see what works for you. But really removing what's causing the obstruction is the key. So however you get there, it could look different for everybody is what I'm getting at.
Yes. And I have found with that too that there are labs that will test for food intolerances and sensitivities and things like that. And I'm curious if you ended up going that route, because there is definitely the spectrum of if you test when you are reacting to everything, everything's going to come back because you've got on my prior sessions, the intestinal permeability or that mucosal membrane is kind of the root. And so it's not really going to give you a true picture of what in the long term things that we need to avoid. But really, it's, I think, more of listening to the body. Sometimes people need that of just, we're going to start here and take these out. But I found that a lot of times that when we're not looking at the root, that they just keep those foods out for a long, long time. And they're like, I don't know what to eat. And so you have
Yeah.
to figure out how to heal that to know then that then you will be able to eat that. That I get that question of like, is this forever? Am I on this supplement forever? Am I, avoiding this forever? And I'd say usually no. Sometimes there is that true like reaction that your body just, even once you're healed, doesn't do well with it. I would say dairy for some people, or wheat or gluten for some people, but even so, there are, ways once we're fully healed or we're traveling or whatnot that you
Yeah.
tolerate it just fine. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you brought that up. And actually, when you do heal and you feel good, you should be able to like bring something in, and your body will tell you. And that sometimes I'll bring something in and I'll be like, our belief about that item, right, can trump what actually is. So like if you think something's bad for you and you're eating it and you have that guilt or shame around it, that can be almost more harmful than if you were to just like eat and enjoy. So like our mindset is a huge piece of it. I can now have certain things, like if I'm, traveling or something, or if I, uh, yeah, treat myself to something or want to fall off a little bit of like what I know. I just listen to my body and being like, okay, wow, it can handle it now, or it's not something that made me feel ideal. I have it like every great once in a while. So it's not like you have to be on something forever, but once you start to feel good, your body naturally will crave those things. So I don't crave the things I used to because my taste buds have totally changed. And so now my body is more in tune with what it needs that is actually really good for it versus before when I had those addictions.
And it can happen quickly too, which is why in December I did a 5 day sugar-free challenge. And that's part of this week as well of eliminating sugar, which really, if it isn't whole food, reading the label and seeing where sugar like hides and so many different things. But you find usually midway through the week and by the end, you're like, oh my gosh, like I just don't even, it doesn't appeal to me. It can be hard in the middle, but then
Yep.
finding ways around that. And you mentioned in there too of your mindset of why are we craving certain things. That is it stress related, is it the gut microbiome, which is another one of our foundations, is it where is it coming from? And that can also be hard, but once you get through that, you're like, oh my gosh, the fruit that we eat tastes so much better, the vegetables actually taste a little sweet,
Yeah.
green powders taste good, things like that. So important.
Yeah, I actually crave more bitter stuff now than I used to. I used to think arugula tasted gross, but now I actually really like it. And one of my favorite salads in the spring is dandelion, like fresh dandelion salad, which most people probably don't want to go and eat dandelions, but they're really tender in the springtime. And if you find a place that doesn't spray, it's like my body just really craves it. And I notice my digestion's even better when I'm eating it. So yeah, I love dandelion.
Yes, and dandelion too is so good for the liver and our digestive system that they actually make, tinctures or formulas that are called bitter formulas that have been, ancient within the naturopathic realm, because it stimulates our own digestive enzymes, it supports our liver like cleansing. And it's, amazing that this time of year in Chinese medicine is the time of the liver, which is also the springtime. We have energy to cleanse and release everything we've, stored or been exposed to through the winter and whatnot. So it all kind of brings together once we're listening and more in tune with nature and what's happening around us. And you put it all together. So our bodies are so good at telling us what we need once we're through those signals that come from, artificially processed things that
Yeah.
override that system.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so important to listen to those warning signs early. I always say, like, listen to the whispers so you don't have to hear it scream. And I'm in a situation right now where they got misinformed with certain things years ago, and now they're faced with, a possible stage 4, something that we don't want to have that news. But had this person caught this earlier and got to the root of it, they wouldn't be in the predicament they're in now. And so it's so important to listen to these things, whether it's pain that won't go away, or skin rashes or breakouts. It's just our skin is a reflection of what's happening internally. So we could always tell that by, is our skin well hydrated? Do we have rashes or break out easy? These are all indications of something is out of harmony or out of balance, whether it's cyst, tumors, pain, whatever symptom. That it's just like we cut our finger is an example I use. Like, we don't even have to think about it. We know our body's going to heal it. And so what makes inside our body any different is the environment, the chemistry that we bring in by what we eat, what we drink, what we breathe, and what we put on our skin, and our thoughts is kind of how we bring that outside in. And so our body is amazing at regenerating if we just give it the right environment.
Yes, 100% agree. It is about, a lot of it is about choosing what we allow in, right? And what we're able to release or choose to let go of, which can be a hard thing as you're moving into that kind of a mindset or process that we get to choose, we get to help create what we want to see more of. And that will then also start to reflect internally. But I love that you mentioned those early signs, those early clues that something isn't quite right. And I want to take it back to what you mentioned too of the lymphatic system, because I know that's also specialty and I often forget to mention it even when I'm talking, but it is the system that really is like when we move our bodies, it pumps our lymphatic system to help cleanse. So even just starting movement, how we sleep at night can impact our lymphatics, what we're eating right before bed or not eating before bed, can definitely impact how well this system works. So I'm curious, as you're going through, are there any tips that you would say for people in assessing their lymphatic system of simple things, like a couple of simple things they can do if they're waking up kind of with some of those symptoms you mentioned earlier, feeling some of that?
Yeah. Yeah, if somebody has pain that's not getting better, that's a huge sign of lymphatic stagnation. I actually interviewed somebody who I learned this technique from, and he says to check your collarbones here. And if you see puffiness, this is a great indication of, and I used to be really puffy here. You couldn't even see the bones. So you should be able to see your collarbones. And if there's puffiness, then there's lymph stagnation. So if just go on YouTube and type in the big six, he goes through a routine where you go through these 6 points on the body, and it starts with opening up here to open like the pump and the drain. And that's what you can do from the outside in, is really helpful to like get the lymph system moving. And so that's something I've been adding in my routine recently, and it's been I really like it. And I was teaching my son because I noticed he had a little puffiness. So if you have like puffiness under the eyes, if you have swollen lymph nodes here, one of your biggest lymph nodes is in the abdomen, like right where the ribs are, the cisterna chyli. Um, so yeah, he goes through the different points. And so if you do that technique, that can be really helpful. And then also, if you're eating certain foods and you wake up and your face is swollen, this used to happen to me, and because I was reacting to foods and I knew my lymph system was backed up, right? Also, another thing to point out too is allergies. I didn't have allergies until I got older, and it was because my sewer system was backed up, my lymphatic system. And so as I cleaned internally, I haven't had allergy issues since, and that was over 10 years ago. And so even if somebody has like, oh, I have seasonal allergies, no, it's you have a sewer system that's backed up, and so we have to clean things out. And if we've, eaten the standard American diet, most people have growing up, and if we've never taken time to clean out the waste, then like I said, what we don't eliminate accumulates, and then we can have these other symptoms. So I think it's really important to do cleansing, or at least changing diet if you're not eating super clean, and knowing where your food comes from. Cleansing just gives you a little jump start to like help everything work more. But foods that are helpful for the lymph system are like, lemon juice. There's certain, half a lemon in water is really helpful. It has an alkalizing effect, but also it's astringent to help move that lipid-based fluid, which is like 4 times bigger than the blood, and it's just not talked about enough. And so we have our blood that feeds our cells. And our whole body is made up of a bunch of cells, and we have two major fluids, so the blood and the lymph is 4 times bigger. And so it's really important if we have that fluid-based system to make sure the trash is coming out. So another analogy is kind of like if you have a house and you have a party and you 10 years go by and you never take out the trash, like would you want to live in that house type of thing? And so over these years, if elimination pathways are blocked and we just didn't know it, whether we're constipated or our kidneys aren't filtering the cellular waste out or stuff is stuck, right? If there's cysts or tumors or different things, this is the lymphatic system there's obstructions to the flow of energy. So yeah, it could start with puffiness, right? Because our body's trying to protect us. And so that's another thing I always want is our body's always wanting to protect us and look out for us. And it does it by, maybe releasing more water, edema, to help with buffer the acids from the acidity of the food or diet and lifestyle. So yeah, those are certain things to look out for. And I like bringing in more hydrating, alkalizing, forming foods to the body to help move it. So high water foods. Fruits are really helpful for cleaning the lymphatic system. And greens and herbs are great for stabilizing minerals and also they help with cleansing as well. So yeah, it depends on what goal somebody has and how they want to go into it. But yeah, fruits and vegetables are usually the way to go to start to clean things out more. And the astringents help clean even faster.
Yeah. So great. So we're gonna do the massage, or looking at kind of some of those points where we can do like a self, almost like lymphatic massage or awareness of that, eating more. I heard half a lemon in a glass of water. I really love that first thing in the morning. For a lot of people will do that to kind of set the tone for having out more of an alkaline digestive, moving through your body, which goes through your blood and lymphatics. And yeah, the awareness of our fruit and vegetable intake as well, which are whole foods. It kind of
Yeah.
ties back in, which is exactly what a lot of the regenerative health is. I feel that it doesn't have to be as complex. I feel like now marketing is getting involved, but it can be much more simplified in our day to day of what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. Health is really simple. It's just the body is the healer. We just have to give it the right environment. And so it could be as simple as, yeah, just eating more on the real whole food, hydrating because it has all the enzymes, all the water, it's filtered. I mean, I went on, so I was, programmed to think fruit was bad even for a long time. And so I thought, oh, it has too much sugar. And where fruit gets a bad rap is if we eat it on top of a meal, it can cause fermentation and that can affect our blood sugar levels. But if we eat it first, it can do the opposite. And depending on the person, right? If somebody is struggling with blood sugar stuff, things can be modified and maybe more berries or low glycemic things are helpful for that person. So I think it's so individual, but in my personal experience, I brought in a ton of fruits and it helped really clean things out. And was on an herbal protocol and just really cleaned, and I got so much stuff out, but I didn't realize, like I said, how good I felt until I cleaned out that system. And then I had no pain. I could wake up with energy. I've never had that in my life of like actually waking up without an alarm, wanting to get out of bed, standing up straight, not hunched over, not blaming it on an old softball injury, because that's what I used to do. Like the shoulder would be stuck, and I'm like, it took a while for the shoulder to go down every morning. And I thought, oh, it's because I was a fast pitch pitcher. So maybe it's because I use my arm a lot. Like I would just blame it on things, or my dad has a bad back, so I do. And once I felt this difference, it just really empowered me to be like, that was it. It was just food. All I had to do is eat some fruits and herbs and vegetables and like greens, and that was a healed fast. Like it can be that simple.
Yeah, so it's perfect to put that in perspective of, and it can take a little while, that sometimes it doesn't happen overnight, or it doesn't happen within an hour, like if you would take a pill. So some people, it's a mindset shift of that it took, how long did it take for me to get into this state, like you said, not cleaning out the garbage for 10 years, versus if we're in that state where we've already been collecting and doing a lot of like holding on, and I've got this and I've got this and I've got this, and it just, the way, whatever, that's the way it's gonna be, versus okay, if I do this consistently, but we often will notice a change, even if you're consistent for 5 days or even a little bit longer, longer than that over time, it will build up quickly, and then you start to notice, and then you're in a pattern, and it's a rhythm that just becomes your new lifestyle. So it's that shift of self-control of what do we have control over our health versus I need to go to somebody to fix me. Yes, guidance is amazing, which is why you're here, which is why I'm here, because we have this knowledge of herbs and food and healing and lymphatic and movement, and but then it's somebody, sometimes we need help to put it all together. So we did have a question in there. Are there specific herbs that you can recommend that you would say for lymphatic that you eat regularly or you include regularly, or if you're starting off? You mentioned dandelion root or
Yeah.
dandelion leaf, right? You do the leaf.
Yeah, so I learned from a teacher who is a naturopath and chemist, and he created these herbal formulas that are synergistically blended for the kidneys, for the lymphatic system, for the liver. And so I went on a protocol with those formulations because there's like a bunch of herbs that support the kidneys. And he says you don't want to take a ton of herbs to move the lymph system if those kidneys aren't opening and filtering out those cellular waste. So there's like a, like an art to it. So you, like you said, working with somebody to help you with an herbal protocol that's for you. Like for example, if someone was diagnosed with cancer, you would for sure have certain teas and different things in there that I would recommend versus if somebody was just trying to do a cleanse. So there's different things for different people, but I would say the basics are making sure you're supporting your kidneys, your liver, your GI tract. And then, yeah, the lymph, you just don't want to have a heavy lymph mover if those kidneys aren't opening because you can start to stir things up and feel a little worse before you get better. But I say start with diet first, and then you can add those things in because they just kind of like support the body to go a little faster. Um, and I noticed a big difference too with that. So it's not like one specific herb I used or anything like that. It was a combination of these formulas, and I'm happy to share that with you. Or I'm sure you have herbs you work with too.
Yeah, I agree. And it is a lot of times people go on a detox and it gives them, the Herxheimer reaction where they get super sick because everything it mobilizes too much at one time. And maybe they're not going to the bathroom regularly, or, yeah, the kidneys aren't filtering at a great rate. So that's why sometimes if people have labs, they do start there, look just to kind of get a gauge of where the organ systems are and talk, ask those questions of how often do you go to the bathroom? What is it like? Is it easy? Is it regular, things like that, because that gives an idea of what level people are starting from to then know what to do next. Like some people are very conscious and they've done cleanses off and on, their kidneys and liver look great. So you can do more moving the lymph. But I would say more often, we got to do some support around the liver, do some support around our routes of elimination. Like, do you sweat or not is another big one. Because sometimes we have to get there first. So know that once we release things, we get rid of them, and then we have binders in there that'll help grab onto things as they eliminate. So, and yeah, I also agree with you that we can do a single thing, but more often it's the formulas that are somebody put together, an herbalist or whatnot put together, because it has components that are going to work synergistically and not just one thing like we would in, medication or whatever that's an isolated thing. Herbs really do work when they're in their whole part, which is the beauty of formulas too, that herbs work really well together. And we did, yeah, a whole formulating class on it. But generally looking at liver, gallbladder, lymphatics, there are amazing formulas out there that have the components integrated within them.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you brought up making sure the elimination pathways are open because, yeah, if somebody's not having a bowel movement every day, we want to start there before we move things too fast. So yeah, there's an art to it. And once you get it, once you experience it for yourself with some guidance, then you can have this empowerment. And that's like, I needed help when I first started. And once I had that, it's like, okay, I'm learning how to ride my bike. And then I could get rid of the training wheels. And now it's like, okay, I feel really confident I can help other people now, and just you pay it forward and yeah, guide people in that way to for them to get empowered. And so like I can confidently say my kids have never been on antibiotics. I have an 18-year-old and a 6-year-old because of the knowledge I've learned. I know how to give their body the right conditions so they don't have to, if something comes up, I know how to do that in a natural way. Um, there's a time and place for Western medicine, but if we could be proactive, right, and know these things and understand the body, we can really take charge of our health in a whole new way.
I
That was
agree. It's a
another,
process.
yeah. No, I was gonna say that's another thing I struggle with. I used to get UTIs all the time, and I thought I was doing all the natural things until yeah, really like really got to the root of like the cleansing and cleaning out because it's like you build up this tolerance too of just like kind of an alcoholic. The more you drink, the more you can tolerate. So I feel like it's the same with food. The more we eat these junk foods or these foods that might be processed, it's like we build up a tolerance, so to speak, but our body compensates and tries to keep us alive in the best way it can. And so like some people I meet are like, oh, I could eat that and I don't react, but not too long later they notice the effects. And so they might not feel it right then. But I feel like when you clean your body out, you're just more in tune of what makes you feel good and what doesn't, and you can also heal faster. Like I'm not scared to be around people who are quote unquote, sick or have something because I'm not scared of it. I know even if I was to get sick, it's like, okay, my body's going to clean out more and I know how to give it the right conditions to do that. So I don't have fear of what we think is sickness when it's really our body just trying to cleanse and detox stuff out.
Yeah. I love what you mentioned in there because it is a process of learning throughout it of the stages where we're at, and that as you have something regularly, but then you take it out. So doing like a 30-day elimination of something like that, and then you eat it again, and your body will tell you very clearly whether that is something that is like, oh yeah, this feels good, or oh this yeah doesn't feel good. And I have people some people be like, oh my gosh, like I can't get my favorite whatever anymore because I eat it and I just don't feel good. I'm like, well, yeah, it's then it breaks that cycle of like, I need that or those cravings, which is going to shift you into that new pathway on your health journey, which is great. And oh my gosh, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I know we're already reaching our half an hour mark somehow. So I would love for you to share. You have over 30 speakers that you've done for your Regenerative Health Summit. And
Mhm.
how can people contact or get into that to be able to receive that information as well?
Yeah, if they just go to Karri Tidwell, so Karri and then Tidwell on Instagram. I put posts on there where you can see a little bit more of who the speakers are. And if you comment on, some of those recent posts summit, it'll automatically send the link to register. So if you're wanting to like check out the guy where we go deep into the lymphatic stuff, that was a good one. But there's, yeah, lots of good ones like Barbara O'Neill. We go into the terrain theory, and the germ theory. Yeah, there's a lot. We talk about the lymphatic system. I talk to other regenerative health practitioners that go deep into different protocols as well, so you can hear from them. Um, and just really amazing healing stories of people who are on their deathbed that revived. And so no matter what stage somebody's in, it's amazing how our body heals when given the right condition. And so listening to these whispers, and you'll hear a lot on emotional health and how that impacts. And so I came into this hole to heal the physical and realized there was some other deeper things, old patterns and belief systems I didn't even know were holding me back. And so it's all connected, and it's a beautiful journey to go on, whether you come from the spiritual side and go in through the physical, or you come from the physical, and because it's both connected. And you'll see that people's stories and how that's how that's so impactful of the beliefs. And forgiveness was a huge piece you'll hear me share of. I didn't even realize I needed to have forgiveness until I started like cleaning and moving the waters. I just felt more emotions come up to the surface that I couldn't stuff or suppress with food that kept me safe as a child. So there all kinds of stuff. So there's like, these physical things, but it can go deeper, and it can just, maybe give you more insight to getting to the root of the root, the root in the physical way, but the root of the root and maybe an emotional way, or something that was keeping you safe as a child you didn't realize was holding you back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing and tying that in because it really is when you look at the body and it is our mind, body, emotion, past, and how we can release. And that is a lot with like the lymphatics, and our cleansing is just like what can we release that will then help us grow. And thank you so much for your time today. I'm really looking forward to continue listening to your experts on your summit and learning, and also for people to be able to reach out. They now have your contact for the programs that you offer, which is amazing, and that help, that guidance as needed. So thank you so much, and we will be in touch soon. As we sign off, have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see some of you tomorrow for the final session of this week.
Thank you.